Hello, everyone, and welcome to the QT2 Systems podcast series, The Coaches of QT2. My name is Reem Jishi, and I am the content director for QT2. And our featured guest today is Coach Tim Gerry. And before we get started, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that if you like what you're going to hear today or what we've done in the past, if you could please just go ahead and subscribe to our channel, that would be really helpful. So with that said, hi, Tim. How's it going?
Hey, great. How are you?
We're doing great. Thanks for joining us here today. Looking forward to talking to you.
You too.
All right. So Boston.
Yeah, no QT2 Celtics are on today, so you got to play, and they're down. They're down a game in the series. So
Boston luck. All right. So I'm going to just start out with the question I start with everyone, which is, how did you come to QT2 Systems?
I came to QT2. I started Ironmans in 2005, and I did a bunch of IRONMAN Lake Placids, and I was really close to a lot of qualifying spots. But the last 10 miles, all these QT2 runner kits, not the really cool ones we have now, the old ones, would go flying by me in the last 10 miles, and I always was like, what are they doing differently than myself? What's the difference? Because I know I'm putting in the time, I know I'm putting in the effort, but sometimes it's not only working harder, it's working smarter. And so in 2014, I called QT2, and I got hooked up with Kate Snow, and I trained with Kate Snow. That's how I originally came to QT2.
Okay. And so in 2014, and then when did you join as a coach?
So then I raced with QT2 2015, 2016. And then at the end of 2016, early 2017, I became a coach for QT2. It was just, it was a natural buy-in. Once I got into what they did, changing the few percent of what I was doing differently, the A to Z philosophy of everything that they did, it just all made sense to me. And I wanted to be a bigger part of it, not just an athlete. I'm a teacher and a coach at a high school. And I just thought if I could learn more and be a coach at QT2, it would just help me not only at the high school level, but I could help other athletes with the experience that I had, going from somebody that was sort of doing all the right things, but you have to change a few things here and a few things there. And that's just what QT2 does. It all makes sense, very professional, and it dials you in, whether you're a beginning athlete or high end looking for a 1 or 2% gain. All the fundamentals are there in that encompasses, and you have so many coaches you can talk to. That's the other great thing about QT2. If you have a question, you don't know the answer, you have so many great resources that other individual coaches or smaller coach groups just don't have.
All right. So you said a lot in that question. So I'm going to back up and break down some of it. So you said that you decided to contact QT2 because you were racing, doing Ironman races, yes, particularly in Lake Placid.
Yes.
You were doing really well. You're like, I got that Kona spot right coming. And then the last 10 miles, you fell apart and QT2 people went by.
It was always QT2 people, just
always QT2.
Okay.
So you're like, what are they smoking, right?
Right. I'm like, what special sauce are they taking?
Right.
Right.
Okay. So then you contacted QT2. You started working with Kate. You went back the next year and raced Lake Placid again, right?
Yep. And I qualified very first time back. And I qualified
the first time back. All right. So you are like this immediate success story here. So so what was the difference? What were they doing?
The real difference was, I'll tell you, the biggest thing, the few things I could say is having a solid recovery week, making hard days hard and easy days easy, and then really dialing in race nutrition and a race pacing plan. Making sure, knowing how much you have to drink per 40 minutes or 45 minutes or hour, knowing how many calories with gels and bars that you're taking in, and then making sure that I practiced it every day. It makes racing just a long training day with a bunch of people that are supported, so I don't have to stop at gas stations to get Gatorades and whatnot. I just get to ride by and pick it up, and it's just the same thing with a little bit more intensity. It made it dummy proof. Like if you practice it, like QT2 is like just work every day and that way, you know how your gut reacts to the fuel, you know how your gut reacts to all the hydration. And that was the biggest component right there. Those small little things was the difference for me. And then it just was like, it was just automatic, and I could just go forever. So
I'm curious, when you came to QT2, were you coached before? Were you self-coaching?
I was self-coaching.
You were self-coaching. Okay. So when you started working with a coach, did you have resistance to what she was telling you, or were you like, okay, I'm just going to go with it?
No, I just like, all right, you're the expert, and, Kate was a professional at the time who qualified for Kona. It was actually a cool experience. She actually raced Kona that year. So I got to race with my coach in the same race in Kona. So she had raced as a professional. So it actually kind of was a cool experience. Like, you're an athlete and your coach is there with you. And but yeah, I bought right in, and the heart rate thing was difficult at first. So a lot of people who train on their own, definitely not heart rate based. They may do a little bit, but everybody always looks at miles per hour, maybe watts now on the bike. But back then watts was just kind of more on the edge. So definitely training with heart rate. It takes a couple weeks for you to acclimate yourself to understand it. And now, I mean, you probably could say the same thing. I don't even have to look at my watch. I know where my heart rate is. Like, I've been doing it, once you're in it for a few months, you can be like, all right, I know what my heart rate is. I know what about my average is. And so, but at first you're like, feel like every stride you're looking at your watch. That was probably the biggest adjustment.
Yeah. So you did that. And when did you start realizing that it was different? Like was it race day, or did you kind of get hints of it before that?
I was feeling stronger and stronger. Our core dietitians are phenomenal too. So I worked with one of them. So, leaning out, eating a little bit healthier too was also a nice part of that as well. I did a 70.3 before then. I did a couple half marathons before that. And I was just getting a little faster, a little stronger, and kind of dialing everything in. So I gotta be honest, on race day, I actually got super panicked. Like, my heart rate jumped out of the water, and I got on the bike, and it took, it takes patience and trusting the process. And that's probably one of the hardest things as a coach is get my athletes to trust the pacing plan. And it was scary trusting the pacing plan at first, to be honest. The first, 15, 20 miles on the bike, I was way behind where I normally would have been. But trusting the plan and the heart rate made up for it at the last part of the bike, and then really crushed the run.
Yeah.
And that was
those last 10 miles, the run were a different experience.
I was faster than the first 10.
That's awesome.
So
nice. So that was 2014? 2015. Okay.
Yep.
2015. And then you went to Kona that year, right? Yeah. As the first time. So what was your first experience at Kona like?
Oh, you get goosebumps thinking about it. I can remember, sorry, it's my light here at school. I can remember running in the stadium, listening to the announcer and knowing you probably had your Kona slot. Like, you don't know for sure, right? But I knew I was up in that group, and the goosebump was great. But going to Kona the first time, it's awe-inspiring. It's kind of cool. You get to the swim early in the morning, and the pros are there, and it's just everybody's kind of hanging out. You're riding on the course. And I can remember the first thing I really remember was Miranda Coffrey was racing that year, and I was riding my bike back. It was late at night. It was sunset. And I'm like, wow, that woman has an amazing stride. And I get up and I'm like, yeah, no kidding. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, from a track coach and a cross country coach, I'm like, wow, I don't know who that girl is, that woman is, but she has an amazing stride. I get up, I'm like, I mean, somebody runs, 250, sub 250 and an Ironman, marathon. I was like, okay. But it was just that was just the kind of cool part is it's not like other sports. You get to race on the course on the day, and the week of the race, those athletes are, they're eating next to you at the shops, they're doing all the same things you're doing. And it's really neat.
Yeah. That's one of the cool things about triathlon is that you can be in those races with the pros. I mean, they're there at the same
right there
starting line.
Yep.
I was have a couple Olympians that are in my age group that I've like, when I've shown up to like short course worlds, I'm like, okay, here you are, you were in the Olympics and now I'm racing against you. Well, not really. I mean, you're blowing me away, but I am physically present and starting to swim.
And it's neat. It's fun. It's exciting.
It is. It is really exciting. You
And it's humbling. And it's humbling.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. So so we're at 2015 for
Yep.
Kona. You said that you started coaching sort of the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. So how did you transition then? You're still an athlete. You're
over
still
to Brad Strader, another coach for QT2. Kate had left. So I transitioned over to Brad. And one of the greatest things I took from Brad is I do it here as a teacher anyways, it's just having a great coach athlete relationship. Like any of the trials or tribulations or getting the buy-in, if athletes have doubts, it's having that relationship so you know which angle to come at them with. And I built up a good relationship with Brad. I went to Tremblant that year. I actually raced with a guy I'd given my bike to in 2012. I had Lyme, didn't know it. Mile 20 on the bike, guy's rear derailleur broken. Same size. I gave him my entire bike in the race. He finished in 10:30 on my bike. And we became friends and we actually raced Tremblant together and both ran 9:30 and qualified for Kona in 2016 with a different coach. It kind of just shows, I went from one coach to the next and you know what I mean? Back-to-back years. And so it was kind of a cool experience. And so when I got friends with Brad, I met Tim, we did a couple bike races together. And they understood I bought into the philosophy, which I really do, the eating, the sleeping, the training, all that stuff. And I was like, I kind of like to do this. I coach other endurance sports at the high school level. They're like, all right, well, why don't we send you, to get you USAT and we'll see how it goes, and so I took a chance and I did that.
Okay. So becoming a QT2 coach, I mean, you just mentioned that you did USAT, but that's not like we require a heck of a lot more than that, right? So what was the process? Because you've been now with QT2 a couple of years longer than I have. So you already had the education as an athlete, which I think is a really important part of what we do, that our coaches are all athletes, right? They've been athletes. And so they've learned through that. You've got your USAT certified. What else did you go through before you came on like officially as a coach?
The cool part was when I went to get my USAT, Jesse was one of the presenters. So went there, I had Jesse, at the time, which was really great. And then QT2 says, all right, that's great. However, we want you to do all these other modules. And so then you have to spend an additional, I don't know how much time it was a significant amount of time, which I love because I just learned so much more. So through QT2 coaching, they send you through their own coaching. So you have to be coached by a QT2 coach as an athlete. Then you have to get USAT. And now they say, okay, that's still not enough. We want you to know what we want you to know as well on top of USAT. And so they send you through all these extra modules, and it's eye-opening, and they kind of walk you right through the whole process from A to Z again, so that when you become a coach for QT2, you're solid, you're good, you are way ahead of other people that are coaching just at the USC. That's their only educational background, or maybe they have some friends, but the extra stuff on the computer that we have on our website from a coach's resource perspective is bar none. It's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So you take all of that. You take your experience as an athlete, all the additional training you got. You started working with athletes in 2017, roughly, right? So would you say that there's a type of athlete that you work with?
It's funny. I was thinking about that, and I don't know. There's not a type of athlete that I've had. I love beginners. I've had a ton of beginners. 18-year-old, I've had an 18-year-old come for me and go to Lake Placid and finish that. I have a 65-year-old woman who's phenomenal, come back from a broken hip and 7 months later wins the 70.3. I've had men my own age, qualify for Kona and win the XC division. So there's not a certain type that I have. I kind of have the whole gamut. Which keeps it's fun. But I mean, if I'm going to be true, I really love the beginners. I love diving in as that first life experience. helping them kind of get the training wheels off. It's super fun, but it really doesn't matter. But you can see there's a little extra spark in their eye when they finish their first Ironman.
Yeah.
Everybody, you always remember your first, right?
Oh,
You
yeah.
always remember that first finish line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Is there, so you work with, I mean, a full range, men, women, different ages, different experiences. Is there like this is a tough one, but like an attitude, something that you are looking for as a coach that you're like, yeah, I need them to be X?
And nothing I'm looking for. What I want somebody to do is enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. As an athlete myself, I try to do every single workout how they're planned, because when I go to the race, there's no excuses. I can't say, what if I could have, I should have, I would have, if I did all these other things. I like to go there and say, if I get beat today, or whatever time I have, or whatever place I have, this was the best I was capable of. So I do love the athletes that they want to do the workouts, and it doesn't matter what level they're at. It doesn't matter if they're going to be a 17-hour finisher or a 9.5-hour finisher. Those people are the same if they're doing all the workouts and they're clicking along and they're enjoying the whole process, the journey. Like sometimes I always say, like, sometimes there's just workouts you just don't want to do, right? We've all been tired. You don't want to do the workout. In the back of my mind, I always say, I could not be able to do it. I could be injured. I could not have the time. There's so many other things that would be worse than having to do a workout. So that kind of drives me too. So I do like athletes that that enjoy it, that enjoy working out, that it's not a job to them. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So you kind of touched on this, but I'm just going to ask the question straight out. Would you say that you have a coaching philosophy? I
do. I mean, it's easy when we have the 5 cornerstones in QT2. So that's always in the back of my mind as I'm doing everything. So, you have the training, the nutrition, the race fueling, the pacing, and the mental part, and the companionship, right? But the other part is it's a life experience. I look at everybody from a life experience perspective, and then I talk to them, and you have to blend their goals with their family, their time, their friends, and the work to create the best training plan with the time that they have, so that they can enjoy the journey and get to the starting line healthy and confident that we put in the work. So they're going to have a fun, successful race. And, whether it's a sprint, an Olympic, a 70.3, or a full, it doesn't matter. You gotta, and that's it's talking to them. It's not just like, coaching isn't just throwing workouts out on Training Peaks and that's it. It's talking to them about what days work better for them. What's their family? Do you have birthday parties? What's coming up? What are your travel plans? When are your vacations 3 months down the road? So I can build blocks knowing that vacation week's probably going to be a recovery week, so that they can enjoy their family during their vacation time to regroup, because we all know, we train a lot. Our family gives a lot to us when we're training. If we're I come up from a married perspective. So, if you have kids, if you have a spouse, they're doing more while you're out for maybe a 5 or 6 hour ride. So trying to make sure you create a vacation experience for them when they're doing a family. So it's all those things blended together for my philosophy. Did that make sense?
Oh, yeah. No, it absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
So in that, have you ever found yourself in a place or with an athlete where they're like, okay, I work 80 hours a week, I have a family, I'm taking care of my sick mom, and they're like, but I want to race Ironman Mont Tremblant. Yep. And you're like, there's just not enough time in the day to do that. Do you ever, have you had?
Yeah. So you have those, right? And so what you do is you have to blend the expectation, right? So the expectation is, listen, we just want to get you to the finish line, right? Like if you only have 8 hours a week to train, right? Training for an Ironman on 8 hours a week is pretty tough.
Yeah.
But we want to get them there to the starting line healthy, manage expectation. Like you're not going to do a 10-hour Ironman, right? And then say what days we got to get in the long workouts, right? We have to make sure we get in the long bike. We got to get in a swim here or there, or do different core things. So managing time-wise, it's those are actually fun. The non-traditional ones where somebody says, I want to get to the finish line. I can do something long on Saturday. Everything else, I got 45 minutes or less, and
Yeah.
figuring that out. And like I said, that's the conversation piece, the blend, goal, journey, family together.
Yeah. And there's no, like, you can't go online and be like, give me a training plan that's 45 minutes a day, except I need to miss every other Thursday. And I have to take, I mean, that's like, you know, it's so different when you get to know your athletes and understand who they are, what their commitments are, what their expectations are. And then, you know, like, our job as coaches becomes to do everything we can to make their dreams come true based on what they have available to them.
And then we
Right.
get those type A ones that they hit every green and every workout, right?
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
life happens, right? And they miss their Tuesday bike. Something happened, and Tuesday they weren't, and you know, their anxiety's up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm that way. Like, if I miss a workout, I can't stand it. So it's them being able to call and say, listen, I'm just going to move a few things around the rest of this week, and you're
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
And that part's good too, that they feel they're like, listen, what can I do? And you're like, and they trust you enough that you're going to manage some things, move some things around.
Yeah.
So that they, you know, having confidence in the process as well is important, and having confidence in us as coaches that it's not just a job. I really don't look at this as a job. I love coaching, and I know it is a job, and we do, you know, but I enjoy it. I love helping other people get better at what they have a passion for. I guess it goes back to that question, like, what type of athlete do you like? I love athletes that have passion, and it doesn't matter what ability level they're at.
Mhm.
They have a goal and they want to accomplish it.
So working with athletes, endurance athletes, any athlete really, or any person in life, doubts, right? I mean, can I do it? What if I'm not ready? Like, so when you have an athlete that comes to you and expresses a doubt about their ability to be able to accomplish whatever, a workout, a race, you know, how do you respond?
And again, this is the coach athlete relationship. Some need constant positive reinforcement, and some need a kick in the ass.
Mhm.
And knowing when and where is so super important. But the doubts come in for a number of different reasons. But what I try to do is, you know, you can go back and show them good workouts. Like, understand that not every workout is going to be your best workout, right? Like, we can't exponentially get better every single time we work out. Then we do an Ironman in 0 time, right? You know, but I like to throw out motivational quotes, positive self-talk, and mental imagery. Those are kind of some of the backbone things I wrote my thesis on mental imagery. So I have a background in that. So that positive self-mind, going through your processes that you've done it, doubts, going back to workouts that they've done that were similar, that were successful.
Mhm.
And then recently there's some really cool YouTube videos out there about just positive self-talk. You know, because let's face it, if you watch social media, if you watch the news, there's a lot of negativity out there. So having some positive self-talk or some positivity is important. And so that's, you know, talking them through that part. And then again, it's that day-to-day that QT2 does. If you hit your nutrition, you hit your heart rate, you do this, you say, listen, you do this all the time. You do it every single day. And then once we're getting to the race, all that it is again is it's just a longer day that you just don't have to stop and refill your own stuff. People are there handing it to you. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. So a related question, and because you do train athletes that are older, and at some point you still do everything right and you start getting slower. How's that discussion? Like, how do you have that one? Because we know we're going to get slower as we get older, right? But I don't think it makes it any easier to get slower.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you have that? How do you have that discussion with someone?
You know, it's interesting because not going through it, I was at a very high level for a very long time to 2019, like every year, 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, I went to Kona. It was very easy. 2019, COVID hit. I bought a new house, everything kind of, you know, and I exercised, but I wasn't training as much. So a year ago, I kind of got back into it. And again, you jump back into it like, all right, I'm going to be back where I was in 2019. And woo, there was a eye opener on
Yeah.
your power numbers and some of your swim numbers. So it was a humbling experience for myself that has actually helped me relate to my athletes even closer, to manage expectations. And some say, no, I'm not going to get slower. But it's talking to them like, if you do the right things, you can diminish the amount that you are going to get slower. We're all going to get older. We're all going to get slower. Again, I'm sorry for this light. The school won't allow us to keep the power on. Everything's on power safe. But that's, again, if you go back to our modules and you go back to our coaching things that we all do, making sure that our older athletes are really hitting the weights, really doing, high intensity intervals, all those things that are going to maximize what we can at an older age, more mobility work, especially in those hips as our older athletes kind of, I even feel it, I'm 50, but working on all those things, I think having the knowledge and presenting it in a way that, listen, we're never going to outlast father time, right? But we can minimize the effects of father time on us. And that helps them breathe a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense, because I say that my goal now isn't to get faster, but it's to get slower, less quick. Other people around me, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I said. Yes.
Right? I'm like, I was like hitting a lot of my peak stuff in my 40s, and then I turned my 50s. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm training as hard and I'm working, but they're just not there. But it's just like this perspective that I have to try to keep reminding myself. And a lot of the athletes I work with are in their 50s or 60s, or I have a couple in their 70s as well. And just, how you keep it going.
I have this amazing woman that I've been coaching for a few years, and she just turned 65, and she's the one who broke her hip. And it just, the amount of volume this woman is able to take on to train for these, it's amazing. I'm like, I coach high school kids, and if they did what you do in one day over the course of 2 weeks, they would stay in bed for 3 days. So also trying to say, like, what you do compared to other people your age is amazing as well.
Yeah.
I know we always look at the pinnacle in our age group because that's what we do. Like, we want to be here, which is great. That's why we're in the sport. We want to get better, but also to be like, you're amazing. You're spending 15 to 22 hours a week exercising. That's an amazing accomplishment. And you're not getting slower. We're maintaining, we're getting a little bit better, just a little bit less. So.
Yeah. It's cool. I've also worked with athletes who are older, but weren't athletic when they were younger. And that's neat too, because you can be like, you're in your 50s and you're PRing now, because, like, the body is an amazing thing, and just train it the right way and listen and give it, as one of the first things you said at the beginning, solid recovery. Even more important the older we get, right?
So
to give
huge.
your body the rest that it needs.
And the young kids are the same way. Like, you have my 18, I have a couple of younger ones, and they're phenomenal. But they just think they're going to bounce back, or they could just, the mental strength. I mean, I don't think that's accounted for enough in this sport, is the mental strength to do any endurance sports is phenomenal. And as a cross country coach at the high school level, most of my cross country kids are all in the top of the grade. It takes a lot of mental strength to run and push yourself through and stay focused, stay on the bike, do all those things. So, a lot of people just look at the physical attributes. Mental strength is right there. It is right there, especially during the winter. Wherever you happen to live, I'm about tapped out on my trainer rides. I don't know about you, but my long Saturday trainer rides, I'm ready for some nice weather. I got to be honest. I've watched every show 5 times.
I live in Florida, so I do okay in the wintertime here. All right, so I want to kind of shift a little bit. You've now mentioned you've had to turn on the light in school, and I see the brick wall behind you. So my question is, so you coach for QT2, you're an athlete, but you have other hats that you wear. So tell me about your other hats.
So I'm a phys ed teacher, which I thoroughly enjoy. 26 years. So do that. I coach cross country, coach soccer for a long time as well, basketball, and then track and field. on the side. And then with QT2, it's great. I actually have some run athletes. I have some of the cycle athletes, and I have the triathletes. I'm fortunate enough that I have from each of the hats, even on QT2. I feel blessed because everything's a little different. And it makes me a better coach looking at things from different angles.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a couple proudest moment. Okay. And we're going to wrap things up with that. So
Sure.
First one, as an athlete, proudest moment.
You know, I gotta say, there's going to be two, and I just have to say it because one is, it's true. The first time I qualified for Kona in 2015, I get goosebumps just still thinking about. I remember running down the mat, listening to Mike Riley. I actually did Tim Snow and I, we're in the same age group, and we do all these races together, and we literally were right together to the finish line. We both qualified that year there, but I have goosebumps because it's years. I mean, it was 10 years of grinding, 11 years of grinding to get to that point. So it was so amazing. That was definitely a highlight in my endurance career. And then in 2019, they had a visually impaired division for the first time in the Boston Marathon. I had a friend from Canada that I'd given my bike to that we became friends with. His best friend ran a 2:57 to qualify for Boston. And he's like, I can't run 2:57, but we can, if we split it up. So in Boston, I got to split up. He was the first winner of the visually impaired division. He ran 3:08 at Boston. And that was unselfish at like helping him win that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. I've never been more stressed than running with him, knowing what his goals were. And running with 700 other people that are all trying to win the Boston Marathon, because you think, all right, sub 3 hours. He's like, it won't be bad. There'll only be a few. Well, there's 800 people at Boston Marathon who run sub 3 hours.
Sure,
so it was a cluster the entire time. But getting up to the finish line was a really awesome experience.
Yeah. Wow. I can only imagine. That's great. Okay. So now as a coach, proudest, I'm sure there's not one, it'd be hard to name one, but maybe just something, one or two or three that are memorable.
Yeah. Really, there's a couple. First of all, Leslie's been with us for a long time. She's 65. She broke her hip last June. She came back and won her 70.3 in February. That, to me, to get somebody from a full broken hip at the age of 64, 65, back to finishing a 70.3 and winning the age division, doing well, I'm phenomenal. I mean, to me, we're always texting. I mean, it was a really cool experience. And then the other was, I love first-time finishers. I'm a first-time finisher guy. I love those guys that are grinding it out. So I love that. And then I did the guy who won the XC division out in Kona. I did the whole race with him, and he was able to win it, and he was my athlete as well. So I can't say there's one. There's multiple ones. And
there will be more.
There'll be more. And, and I mentioned the finish lines, but it's really not a finish line. Like, even for Leslie, it's not that she won the 70.3. I mean, most people that break their hip at 65, like, they're tapping out. Like, and she's like, I want more. I want more. Like, it's not the finish line. It's all the stuff that goes into getting you to the race.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one, going back to what QT2 taught me, you don't put the heart, you can't do anything the week, you don't do anything different the week of the race, right? You don't try anything new the day of the race. All the hard work goes in on those 5 a.m. times when you don't want to get out of bed, but you do get out of bed. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of this sport, is mental strength, self-discipline, and then having good coaches that can set a solid plan for what you can do. And so you're as successful as you can be.
Yeah. Great.
I know that was a little long-winded. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I love it. It's been so much fun talking to you. I mean, we met each other a few years ago. We see each other once a year, but like I know so much more about you now. So this was just a real pleasure. I love doing these interviews. I get to know all the coaches.
They are fun, aren't they? Like, I watched all the other ones just like you did, just to get to know people better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Building a relationship.
Someone that you've known for years, you'll watch it. You're like, I had no idea about that. So I think it's been great doing them. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you hopefully before December.
What's your Mass 70.3?
Maybe
There,
I'll
we'll
come
see you
to you.
there or Lake Placid.
Right.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.